Good morning, everyone. Brothers, sisters, psychonauts, and seekers of truth. It is Ananka, and welcome to my bazaar. Today, I'm going to be reading the Norse legend, Frey's wooing of Gerd. The myth of Frey's violent wooing of the giantess Gerd comes from the Song of Skirnir, Skirnismal, one of the poems in the Poetic Edda. Scholars are divided on the age of the poem, and no particularly convincing theory has been put forward so far. However, other pieces of Old Norse literature allude to parts of the plot of this story, so we can be certain that it's at least based on an authentic Viking Age myth. The 11 golden fruits that Frey's emissary, Skirnir, which means shining, offers to Gerd in hopes of winning her hand voluntarily might be some of Idun's fruits that confer perpetual youth, but there is nothing in the text that says that definitively. With all that being said, let our story begin. Frey once sat in Odin's throne for a day, while its usual occupant was elsewhere. He thought it would be amusing, and that surely no harm could come of it. The majestic seat had a commanding view of the entire cosmos. Frey watched what was going on in each of the many lands in the universe, and found it to be quite an entertaining and illuminating way to spend his day. When he gazed into the land of the giants, however, his eyes grew wide, and he could barely breathe. A fluttering sensation filled his belly and his chest. There, in that otherwise so dreary and foreboding terrain, he watched as the most beautiful maiden he had ever seen strolled through her father's fortress on her way to her bedchamber. Her skin seemed to glow with all the radiance of the sky. Frey was stricken with a debilitating love sickness and refused to let anyone see him for days. Frey's father, Nord, grew worried about his son when he failed to emerge from his quarters for many days in a row. So Nord sent Skirnir, one of Frey's servants, to see what was troubling him. In a gentle tone of voice, Skirnir said to Frey, "Do you remember when we were young, how we grew up together and could always trust each other? Surely, old friend, you can still confide in me now. I want to hear the source of your sorrow, in hopes that I might be able to relieve you of some of it." After much hesitation, Frey sighed and responded, "I know that you mean well, but I don't think you'll understand the anguish I am going through." Then he told him about the maiden he had seen from Odin's throne, her appearance, her walk, and how he pined for her with every fiber in his body. He couldn't sleep and he couldn't eat. He could do nothing but sit and long for her. Sighing again, he finished, "But there is no way that she, a giantess, and I, a god, could ever be together." Skirnir, deeply moved by his friend and master's story, stood up boldly and said, "If I can help it, there will be a way. Lend me your best horse and your sword that fights by itself and never fails to slay its target, and I shall go to the stronghold of Gymir, her father, and win her hand on your behalf." Frey didn't believe that Skirnir could succeed, but he saw how badly his loyal friend wanted to help him. So, he granted Skirnir's request and sent him off. Skirnir rode long and hard over dark, wild hills, until at last he spotted the imposing fortress of Gymir in the distance. As he approached, Gerd felt the ground tremble and the walls of her bower quake. A thunderous crashing sound drew nearer and nearer. She ran out and fearfully asked one of her servant girls who was approaching. The girl told her that it was an unknown man, likely a demigod, who had just dismounted and let his horse graze. Gerd told her to let the fellow in so she could question him. Skirnir entered the hall and found Gerd there to greet him. Her face was stern. "Who are you?" she asked. "Are you an elf? A god? How did you ever get to our remote stronghold?" "I am not an elf, nor a god," answered Skirnir. Evading her question and getting right down to his business, he pulled 11 round golden fruits out of his sack and presented them to her. "These will be yours," he said, "if you will consent to be the bride of the great Frey." A look of scorn came over Gerd's face, and she flatly refused the offer, saying that nothing in the world could cause her to desire to marry Frey. Skirnir then pulled out of his satchel something even more magnificent, Draupnir, that golden ring of Odin's from which 8 more golden rings fall every 9th night. This was burned on the pyre of Balder, Skirnir told her, and it will be yours to keep if you accept my master's offer. Gerd refused the ring too, saying that her father had more gold than she could ever wish for. Skirnir's face darkened. He took the unerring sword out of his bag and flashed it in Gerd's face. "See this sword?" he asked her. "By it your father shall fall." Then he held up his magic staff and began to intone a curse upon the giantess. "With this staff, grimmer than any sword, I strike you. Your will shall be bent to mine. You shall become so hideously ugly that you will be famous for it. You shall know nothing but sorrow, loneliness, and rage all the rest of your days. Though your face shall be grisly, and your loins as dry as a thistle, you shall burn with unquenchable, maddening lust. You shall crawl to men and beg them to lay you, but none will have you. 3 of the most loathsome runes I am now about to write for you, and all of this shall come to pass. But if you would change your mind and accept my master's offer, I could leave all 3 unwritten." Gerd's demeanor transformed abruptly. "I never would have thought it possible," she said, "but I am filled with longing for Frey. Take my words to him as you would a cup of fine mead to his lips, and tell him that I will come to him after 9 nights, and we shall be married." When Skirnir arrived back in Asgard, Frey ran up to him and said, "Before you even get off of the horse, tell me, what did she say?" Skirnir told him, taking care to leave out the part about the threats and curses. Sighed Frey contently. "I don't know how I will be able to bear even 1 night without her now. 2 will be torture, and the 3rd? Half of any one of these nights will feel like a month to me." But Frey made it through the 9 nights, and on the following morning, he and Gerd were married in a lush, leafy grove.